Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Biafran Separatist leader Nnamdi Kanu's been convicted in Nigeria on terrorism charges. The leader of the banned IPOB group has been pushing for independence of Igbo territories in southeastern Nigeria for over a decade. Also, as US President Donald Trump says the US will do more to try to end Sudan's war after having been asked to do so by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, millions of children on the ground marked by the conflict struggle to move past their psychological, physical and emotional scars after almost 3 years of fighting. And using mobile phones, the most popular way to make payments in Senegal. As the government looks for ways to boost its coffers, it's considering bringing in taxes for these kinds of transactions. But first, Biafran Separatist leader Nnamdi Kanu has been convicted in Nigeria on terrorism charges. He is the leader of the banned IPOB group and has been pushing for independence of Igbo territories in the country's southeast. Now, his case has dragged on for about a decade now, and prosecutors want the death penalty. Sam Olukoya has more.
The separatist leader, Nnamdi Kanu, was found guilty of all 7 charges against him. 6 of the charges border on terrorism. This includes charges that he incited his followers to take up arms and kill security personnel and their families. He was also accused of belonging to the indigenous people of Biafra. The Nigerian government classified the group, which is also known as IPOB, as a terrorist organization. Kanu was using IPOB and its militant wing, the Eastern Security Network, to prosecute his campaign for a separate state of Biafra. The court found that his activities led to loss of several lives and properties. The judge said this ought to earn him the death penalty, but he got life imprisonment as a show of mercy. Kanu's campaign for Southeast Nigeria to become an independent state of Biafra is popular with many people in the region. People there say they face marginalization from the Nigerian state. The Biafran Civil War of 1967 was the result of attempts by the Southeast to secede from Nigeria. Almost 6 years since the Civil War, Kanu's agitation for a Biafran state is a reminder that many in Southeast Nigeria still feel the sense of marginalization that caused the Civil War.
Well, on Thursday, the White House press secretary said that the president of South Africa ran his mouth against the US and its leader, Donald Trump, with regard to Washington's boycott of the G20 Leaders Summit being held in Johannesburg this weekend. Now, the world's leaders will be gathering at one of the main global meetings for economic cooperation. But the US president will not be attending. South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa had suggested to reporters that Washington had indicated a possible shift in this position. But the White House disagrees. Despite this, Washington demanded that South Africa does not issue the traditional joint leaders statement after the meeting. Ramaphosa does not seem inclined to assist.
There should be no unwritten rules about those who feast and those who must be settled for scraps. It cannot be that a country's geographical location or income level or army determines who has a voice and who is spoken down to. And it basically means that there should be no bullying of one nation by another nation. We are all equal.
Well, the EU sanctioned the deputy leader of the RSF militia behind one of the world's most devastating wars. The visa ban and asset freeze imposed on Abdelrahim Hamdad Daglo are over atrocities that followed the RSF seizure last month of the Sudanese army's last stronghold in Darfur, the city of El Fasher. It suffered 18 months of siege and starvation before it fell, and since, survivors have told of wanton executions, rape and violence. The wider war began in 2023, and although it's caused the world's largest humanitarian crisis, it's struggled to attract diplomatic attention on par with the critical level of suffering that it has caused. The conflict has not been high on Washington's agenda over the last few years, But this week, US President Donald Trump did say that he did not know much about it. However, he has started working on a solution to the conflict as a favor to Saudi Arabia's Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
He mentioned Sudan yesterday, and he said, sir, you're talking about a lot of wars, but there's a place on earth called Sudan, and it's horrible what's happening. And I viewed it as being just sort of a freelance, no government, no this, no that, and he explained the whole culture and the whole history, and it was very interesting to hear, really amazing, actually, to hear. And, you know, we've already started working on that, okay?
Well, tens of thousands have been killed in Sudan's war and 12 million forced from their homes. Amongst them, millions of children who will likely always bear the mental and physical scars of the cost they've paid of surviving through today.
In this camp near the northern Sudanese city of Al-Daba, young Anas Mohammed plays with his siblings in front of a makeshift tent. But the young boy is largely unaware of his surroundings.
He lost his hearing during the war because of the heavy fighting and bombings.
His case is far from isolated. Since the fall of Al-Fashir last month, thousands of displaced children have exhibited partial or total loss of hearing. The vast majority also carry deep psychological scars after witnessing the horrors of war.
They saw the dead bodies in front of them and the injured people on the ground. They saw it with their own eyes and they were afraid and screaming.
These horrific experiences have left almost all of the children in this camp severely traumatized.
Bedwetting is one of the most noticeable issues, along with panic attacks during sleep. Some also exhibit behaviours such as lying or stealing.
According to UNICEF, nearly half of the people who fled Al-Fashir and are currently accounted for are children. Around 50,000 minors, many of whom are left to fend for themselves after losing their entire families.
It's common to find children on the street and take them with you. Most are alone and have no relatives. This puts immense psychological pressure on the child and the families caring for them.
Since Al-Fashir was captured by the RSF on October 26th, the city has been cut off from the outside world, and tens of thousands of people remain unaccounted for.
Sadly, DR Congo is a staging ground of more than one internationally unnoticed conflict. In its west, communities targeted by a militia group called Mabondu are desperate for their authorities to do more to protect them. Emmett Livingston.
Over 5,000 people have been killed and 280,000 people displaced from their homes in the Mabondo conflict since 2022. It first started as a revolt by tenant farmers from various ethnic groups against traditional chiefs from the Teke community in the Teke Plateau in western Congo. But since then, a mysterious militia known as the Mabondo has formed, and it's taken over swathes of territory and carried out attacks. This conflict has devastated a large region northeast of the capital, Kinshasa, and it persists despite several peace initiatives. Little is known about the Mabondo, which is loosely organised and whose fighters believe themselves to be imbued with magical powers. A report released on Thursday delves into the reasons behind this little understood conflict. The violence involved is often extreme.
Some were killed, some were identified and buried, but others were burned, beheaded, and thrown into the water. There are fields that have become inaccessible because of the Mabondo militia. Outside the Batege Plateau, the only activity here is farming. People farm and even bring the embers back here to Kinshasa. To end this crisis, all the main actors involved must sit down together, seek a mechanism or a process for triggering a peace agreement, and ensure that it can be applied to the community on the ground.
The report, which was conducted by the Catholic Church and a Belgian research institute, says that many fighters join the Mabondo hoping to receive farmland. But there are several different reasons for the fighting. Another motivation the report highlighted was the desire to take revenge against traditional chiefs who are perceived as corrupt. The latest attack happened only a few weeks ago when Mabondo fighters killed at least 5 people only 50 kilometers from the capital, Kinshasa. Despite the conflict expanding, it's rarely talked about, and this is partly because the Congolese government has banned journalists from travelling to the regions most affected by the conflict.
Well, Guinea-Bissau is preparing for one of its most high-stakes presidential elections in half a century. It's seen several coups since independence from Portugal, and voters are hoping for a smooth process this time around. Sarah Sacco talks us through.
Campaigning ends on Friday evening, and for now, things seem to be going smoothly. The political climate before campaign began was a very different story, though. Several officers were arrested and detained over an alleged coup attempt. Incumbent leader Umaru Sissoco Embalo is trying to become the country's first sitting president to win a second term since independence. His administration accused the detained men of trying to derail the elections. Supporters of Guinea-Bissau's main opposition leader, DSP, Domingo Chimosh Pereira, say he was deliberately pushed out. He was disqualified from running for the presidency in September, officially because he registered too late. President Embalo's backers clearly have deep pockets. Throughout the campaign, he has been by far the most visible candidate, putting on large rallies and covering the capital, Bissau, with oversized posters. But unexpectedly, an independent candidate, Fernando Diaz, has emerged as a potential challenger after receiving the backing of the coalition that had supported the eliminated opposition leader, DSP. Meanwhile, many Bissau Guineans say they long for change and development.
We need more jobs so the country can move forward. We've lost so much time because of political crisis and nothing ever changes.
We just want security for everyone.
On Sunday, voters will also elect their members of parliament with 14 parties or coalition in the running.
Our Sarah Sacco there on the ground for us. Now, Senegal is facing a major public finance crisis, and one of the ways that it's looking to boost its finances is by bringing in taxes on payments using mobile phones. Now, that's the most popular way to make digital transactions there, but the prospect of these levies has some online sectors worried. Take a look.
Mobile money is a cornerstone of economic life in Senegal. Now, a proposed tax of 0.5% to 2% on mobile money transactions has become the talk of Dakar. Though not yet enforced, the measure, part of the government's new economic recovery plan, has sparked strong reactions among the Senegalese.
It's a good thing. It's thanks to these taxes that the government builds roads and hospitals. I trust the authorities in power.
The taxes are excessive. There's no money in Senegal. Asking us to pay between 0.5% and 2% on mobile transactions is difficult.
With more than 15.3 trillion CFA francs moving through the mobile money system every year and over 65,000 transfer points across the country, mobile money is essentially the people's bank here in Senegal. The government claim that this new tax could bring in up to 220 billion CFA francs. But industry insiders say that this could actually reduce how much money ends up in the system. This is the case for Wave, one of Senegal's mobile money leaders. While the fintech company says it's ready to support the government through this difficult economic period, questions remain around the longer-term consequences.
The first consequence for users is a drop in purchasing power that could push people back to using cash. And once people go back to cash, the adoption of digital channels weakens. That would impact all digital sector players, who could see their volume fall. In the benchmarking data we have, we've seen declines of up to 60% in some countries. These are really warning signs for us.
With a 1% stamp duty on purchases in supermarkets since October, the government is also targeting certain cash transactions to help the economic situation in the country.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again. Take care.
This week on Paris des Arts, literature, music, and a fantastic show. Author Amanda Stairs talks about the mushroom which haunts her new novel.
Ce champignon va commencer à empoisonner peu à peu les rapports de ces deux personnages principaux. Cet empoisonnement va prendre toute la place et dans leur histoire d'amour et dans la société française que je décris tout autour et qui est en train de pourrir.
Karen Ann is back with Paris Amour, her new album that is both subtle and melancholic.
Je sais que mes yeux ne cachent plus la blessure dès longtemps enterrée au fond de mes bagages. Je sais que ton cœur, tant brisé par une autre, est venu rechercher un peu de réconfort.
And our highlight, Les Demoiselles de Rochefort storm the Lido and deliver an incredible show. Valérie Fayolle introduces Paris des Arts on France 24.